Iran launched a new round of attacks across the Middle East early on Wednesday, hours after US President Donald Trump insisted that Washington was in negotiations with Tehran, even claiming they had sent him a gift. Trump suggested the gesture indicates he's dealing with the right people in secret peace negotiations. Media reports have suggested that the US is communicating with Iran via mediation by Pakistan, but Iranian officials have not confirmed any formal talks.
They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is.
Meanwhile, in Iran, former Revolutionary Guard Commander Mohammad Bahir Zolkhadir has been named the new Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, replacing Ali Larijani, who was killed in a recent airstrike. In Tehran, the Red Crescent has released footage of survivors being pulled from the rubble of residential buildings following fresh US-Israeli strikes. Simultaneously, Iranian missiles were launched across the Middle East aimed at Israel and bases hosting US military personnel in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. Israel is continuing its own military operations in Lebanese territory in its campaign against the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Israel has said its military would take control of South Lebanon up to the Litani River, around 30 kilometers from the border. Meanwhile, the Lebanese government has declared Iran's diplomatic envoy persona non grata, giving him 5 days to leave the country.
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen's Social Democrats finished first in Denmark's general elections, but lost ground compared with the last election in 2022, as did her two partners in the outgoing government. Official results showed neither left-leaning nor right-leaning blocs won a majority in parliament. The left bloc was credited with 84 seats in the 179-seat parliament and the right with 77, while 90 are needed for a majority. The centrist moderate party, headed by Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, became kingmaker with 14 seats, and thorny negotiations are expected in the coming weeks to build a coalition government. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, a social democrat who has been in office since 2019, was widely seen as the favorite in opinion polls running up to the election after standing up to US President Donald Trump over Greenland. She told supporters that she's ready to stay on as Prime Minister.
Hungary's Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has acknowledged that he regularly contacts his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov during private EU meetings on foreign affairs. The Hungarian government had earlier dismissed the allegations as fake news, but Szijjártó acknowledged they were true during a speech on Monday evening. The allegations are explosive, as EU member states are bound by the principle of sincere cooperation, and the content of such meetings is understood to be confidential. In a video posted on social media on Tuesday, Szijjártó rejected claims that he had breached security protocols, insisting that secrets are not discussed at the ministerial level meetings in question. Szijjártó said he also speaks to his counterparts in Serbia, Israel, the United States and Turkey, both before and after EU meetings on foreign affairs. The revelations come as political tensions mount ahead of Hungary's parliamentary elections next month, in which the ruling party is behind in the polls against opposition leader Peter Magyar's Tisza party.
The European Commission has delayed the presentation of a highly anticipated proposal to permanently ban the imports of Russian oil, as the war in the Middle East continues to send shockwaves across energy markets and keep the Brent barrel over $100. It also comes amid a tense standoff with Hungary and Slovakia, the only two member states that still buy Russian oil, over the Soviet-era Druzhba pipeline.
I do not have, first of all, a new date to give. What I can reassure you of is that we remain committed to making this proposal. What the President has been very clear on is that going back to importing Russian energy would be repeating a mistake from the past. It would be a strategic blunder. So we have successfully already put in place and enforce the repower gas regulation, which already banned, as from last Wednesday, the new short-term and long-term gas contracts, and we are determined to continue with other energy forms as well.
The legislation, which is part of the Repower EU roadmap, was tentatively scheduled to be unveiled on the 15th of April, but the date has now been removed from the calendar. The Commission insisted the change in timing did not mean a change in policy, saying the proposal had not been cancelled and would still be published, though no longer by the mid-April date.
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen's Social Democrats and the left-wing bloc are set to win Denmark's general elections, but it appears they failed to secure a majority, according to 2 exit polls published after voting stations closed on Tuesday evening. The exit polls were conducted by Danish public broadcaster DR and private broadcast channel TV2. They predict the left-wing bloc will take between 83 and 86 seats in the 179-seat parliament. The right-wing bloc is expected to get between 75 and 78 seats, while the centrist moderates are seen as becoming the kingmaker with 14 seats. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, a social democrat who has been in office since 2019, was widely seen as the favorite in opinion polls running up to the election, after standing up to US President Donald Trump over Greenland.
Here in Doha and across the Gulf, there's a sense of cautious relief after the U.S. announced it has started negotiations with Iran. For many people here, that's offered a bit of breathing room, at least for now. But officials say Qatar is not out of the eye of the storm just yet. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Dr. Majid Al-Ansari said Qatar is not involved in mediation efforts as it focuses on defending itself from Iran's attacks, and the country reserves the right to respond. At the same time, Dr. Al-Ansari acknowledged Qatar and Iran will have to find a way forward and coexist after the war, but that rebuilding trust will be up to Iran.
Our country has been attacked, our sovereignty has been attacked. We have seen the effects on our economy, on the daily lives of people living here, and we don't take it lightly, and we don't see the attacks on our sovereignty as something that we can live with. Now, that said, obviously living next to 90 million people in Iran, a proud people that we have shared the Gulf with for, as I said, millennia, will continue, and we will have to find a way past this. This is a very difficult moment, but we will find our way out of it. The attacks on the region persists. We remain vigilant. We are not out of the eye of the storm. Well, I can't explain to you why these couple of days were without incident, but what I can tell you is that we welcome any reduction of escalation.
He also condemned the targeting of energy facilities in Qatar and across the region, warning of what he called catastrophic consequences for the Gulf. With the risk of further retaliation still a concern, he says protecting critical infrastructure remains a top priority.
I can assure you that we have taken all possible precautions and planned for every possible contingency with very clear scenarios on possible escalation, but we are confident in our security apparatus right now and our response to the crisis. Plans are being implemented fully, and we have not seen any breakdown within the scenarios that were built for such contingency.
Meanwhile, authorities say it's now safe for people to return to work as part of efforts to restore a sense of normal life. So while there is cautious optimism, there's also real uncertainty. People here are watching closely and waiting to see what happens next. Adil Halim, Euronews, Doha.
The small denomination cash crisis in the Gaza Strip is worsening at an unprecedented rate, with a sharp decline in cash liquidity and the prevalence of large denomination bills, which has disrupted daily transactions and created a distorted market that makes even the simplest buying and selling difficult.
بدك تشتري ربطة مقدونس فيش شيكل تطبيق طب كل شوي أنا تطبيق أضل طول النهار في السوق وأنا عشان أطبق شيكل 2 شيكل 3 شيكل طب أنت بدي أروح قريب المغرب لا أنت عارف تركب سيارة لا أنت عارف تركب كارة لا أنت عارف تشتري لك يعني حاجة ولا إشي فيش فك
In the markets of Gaza, the paradox is cruel. People have money, but they can't spend it. A 200 shekel note, about $60, is worth plenty on paper, but in the street of Nuseirat, it can't buy a single loaf of bread. The reason, there is no change.
بالنسبة للسيولة والعملة المخروقة والدفتر هي كله تطبيقات الناس بتكتب ونحول ونبيع على الجهجة هون لأنه الوضع اليوم صعب لا في مصاري مع الناس وكله مخروقة وهنا مسجل اسمائهم وارقامهم زي ما انت شايف وعلى تطبيقه معلم واي عمله على التطبيق لانه فيش مصاري مع الناس كله اللي بحولش في الله موجود يعني وين ما
Small coins and low-value bills have vanished. At the stalls, the exchange is no longer silver for bread. It's negotiations of survival. If a vendor can't break your bill, you leave empty-handed, or you're forced to take your change in matches, spices, or a piece of candy.
الفك عامل أزمة يعني على الكل على كل حاجة على الخضرة وعلى الأواعي وعلى السيارات على كل شيء. الطفل بده منك فك ما كاش تعطيه الشيء. معيش تطبيق. أنا يعني لا أنا موظف ولا جوز موظف. ابني اللي يعني بقول يا ما بحول لك 100 شيكل طبعا خلصت ال 100 شيكل وانا ابني مش هالشغل يعني.
The market is now dominated by the blue shekel, the 200 note. It makes up 80% of the cash left in Gaza, but getting your hands on one comes at a price. Cash out agents are charging up to 40% commission just to turn a digital bank balance into paper.
صاحب المحل بيعاني، صاحب البسطة بيعاني، المواطن كل المواطنين بيعانوا يعني. زمان كانت السيولة يعني تسهل في معاملة الشراء والبيع وكل شيء، الحين بلا مؤاخذة كله تطبيق بنكي، فاهم علي؟ مش كل الناس تتعامل في التطبيق البنكي زي ما قلت لك، يعني في ناس بلا مؤاخذة في الكلمة أمية ما لهاش لا في الجوالات ولا في الإنترنت.
Liquidity has plummeted by 45%, while some turn to digital wallets. The elderly and the disconnected are being erased from the economy. In Gaza today, change isn't just money; it's the difference between eating and going hungry.